I have always hated these induction ceremonies. What is the point of them? Why should anyone celebrate another species that managed to crawl its way into intelligence on some soft little world that practically raised it for them? A world with gentle skies, stable ground, and seasons so kind they could build cities without fear of waking up buried under stone or fire. I shift my weight on the observation balcony, my claws scraping lightly against the cold rail. Below me, the Grand Council chamber shines like a shrine built for boredom. The polished floor is spotless. The air is clean, filtered still. Too still. It feels dead. These people have removed every hardship from their lives, and then they dare to call themselves survivors. Below me, another group of new delegates walks across the center stage. Another polite little species. Another clean history. Another tired story about cooperation, progress, and peaceful growth. They always tell it the same way, like peace is something noble, like it means strength. It does not. To my people, peace means only one thing. Nothing ever truly tested you. The speaker below keeps talking, naming their great achievements, their social harmony, their advances in science and trade. I barely listen. I already know how this ends. It always ends the same way. Applause, smiles at a welcome speech. Another soft race joins the council and spends the next 100 years arguing over trade routes and farming rights. That I curl one hand around the stone rail and force myself to stay still. To my people. The VAR. This whole ceremony is insulting that we did not peacefully rise into greatness, that we tore our future out of the jaws of a world that tried to kill us every single day. Our ground split open without warning and swallowed entire cities. The skies rained fire so often that our ancestors stopped naming the storms and started naming the years when no storm came. The first tools we made were not for planting food. They were for ripping open the mouths of things that wanted to eat us. Even now, when these council races speak proudly of their wars, I almost laugh. Their great conflicts are little more than border disputes. Tiny fights over land and water. One species once lost several hundred people in a storm and wrote songs about their tragedy for centuries. A storm my ancestors would have called that a mild inconvenience. For a long time, my people enjoyed the difference between us and them. We were the fear in the dark. The species others whispered about. Stronger than most. Harder to kill than any. Raised on a death world and shaped by war. It earned us power, influence, respect, and fear. Fear opened many doors for us, but fear fades. Now, the galaxy looks at us and sees only muscle, only violence. They see the claws, the teeth, the ridges on our backs, the predator's eyes. They think we are simple creatures built only to break things. They do not see our history. They do not see our philosophy. They do not see the discipline it takes to survive when the world itself wants you dead. How could they? Their greatest challenge is increasing crop production. Ours was surviving the night. Oh, here I stand. Theraxian, fourth son of the Emperor of Various, sent here because my father did not want to suffer through this useless ceremony himself. Attend, he told me. Watch the newcomers. Study them. Decide if they threaten our interests. Threaten our interests. I nearly laugh out loud at the thought. Nothing in this room has ever threatened anything more dangerous than a formal dinner. The speaker below is still droning on, now talking about environmental adaptation and diplomatic responsibility. I let my attention drift. I think about border tensions, weapons tests, fleet movements, anything but this endless parade of weaklings pretending hardship shaped them. Then the human delegation steps forward, T first. I barely notice them. From a distance, they look forgettable. 2 legs, no scales, no visible clothes, no armor, just bare skin in different shades and upright posture like creatures that have never had a fight for each breath. I prepare myself for the usual story. Another soft species from another soft world. Another speech about unity. Another people who reach the stars by walking an easy road. That I glance toward the delegate beside me. Jocks of the Jix Combine. Her species discovered these humans first. Her many eyes reflect the chamber lights as she watches the stage with a strange stillness that I lean slightly toward her. Let me guess, I mutter. Their entire culture was shaped by one small war over farmland. She makes that sharp little chirping sound her species uses when amused. Just watch, she says that I narrow my eyes. They're all the same. Her gaze does not leave the stage. No, she says quietly. This one is different. I almost answer. Then the lights dim. The chamber grows quiet as a hologram appears above the central platform. A star system rotates in pale blue light. One yellow star. 8 planets. Completely ordinary. I have seen this display hundreds of times. IT always follows the same pattern. Show the star. Show the world. Tell the story. Make everyone clap. But then the image locks onto the third planet, and a set of numbers appears beside IT, and my body goes still. Every spine along my back stiffens at once. For a moment, I stop breathing to know that cannot be right. I stare harder. Sure, I have read it wrong. Sure, the translation system has failed. Sure, in the next second, someone will apologize and fix the display. And oh, one does. Jock says nothing. She is watching me. Waiting. The number stays where it is. Slowly, I lean forward and grip the railing hard enough to leave marks in the stone. Around me, other delegates shift in mild curiosity. They do not understand what they are seeing. But I do that I know what those numbers mean, that I see the gravity first. Heavy, almost impossible for most intelligent life to rise under naturally. The kind of gravity that should trap a species on its own world, grind down its body, and make space travel a dream too expensive to reach. Then I see the atmosphere, dense, the kind that wears the body down and punishes weakness. Then the planetary tilt, extreme enough to create violent seasons. Then the tectonic readings that why throat tightens. That level of instability should have shattered civilizations before they could fully form. And then I see the classification code at the bottom of the display. I know that code, that I know it, because it once stood beside the name of my own home world, Death World. A cold ripple runs through me. The hologram changes. Now the chamber is no longer looking at charts and numbers. Now it is looking at footage. Real footage, not a polished history reel. Not a cleaned-up presentation made to calm nervous diplomats. Real footage that a city is burning. Not from invasion, not from orbital war, from something closer. Something raw, something immediate. The flames twist up into a black sky. Buildings collapse. Smoke floods the streets. And in the middle of that chaos, something moves. That I narrow my eyes. That a human, armor, visible weapon, natural protection we're speaking of. Just flesh, bone, motion, standing inside the fire like it belongs there. Then the footage cuts. The lights return. The chamber goes silent, waiting for the formal welcome, waiting for the speech, waiting for the familiar routine to continue. But it does not. Jox does not begin her prepared remarks. Instead, she turns her head toward me. And at the same moment, the human delegation steps forward. The one at the front lifts his eyes and meets mine. And for the first time in my life, I do not see prey looking back at me. That I see something else, something I know, something I recognize deep in the oldest part of myself. That I see a creature that survived a world that tried to kill it every day. I see a species that earned its place through blood, pain, and endurance, the same way mine did. The human smiles, and every instinct I carry from the death world that made me screams the same word into my mind: predator. History usually turns on preparation and on what was done quietly, while everyone powerful was busy assuming tomorrow would look like yesterday. That was what the Accord had missed. Not our anger, not our pride, our preparation. Vitsar had made the mistake powerful institutions make when they have spent too long controlling the rules. He thought the only things that mattered were the things visible inside the chamber. Votes, titles, procedure. He thought if he could manage those, he could manage the outcome. That he never asked the right question. What was humanity doing while the chamber was stalling us? What were we building while they were delaying hearings, opening audits, revising speaking rights, and telling us to be patient? He did not ask. That was why he lost. The inquiry into Vithsar continued for months. That IT widened before it, narrowed. That is usually how truth works inside systems that are built to avoid it. First, it expands in every direction because once people realize silence is no longer safe, they begin speaking all at once. Old records appear. Buried communications surface. Staff members who kept their heads down for years suddenly remember that they still have copies. Species that had once found abstention convenient begin discovering principles. The inquiry found enough to prove that Henry Cole's death had not been an accident, enough to show coordinated interference in multiple provisional membership cases across several decades, enough to make several very old delegates begin resigning before anyone could formally ask them to. The final ruling took longer than many people wanted. That was also normal. Systems move slowly when they're being forced to judge themselves, but it came. And when it came, it was clear. Henry Cole's name was cleared fully and publicly. The official record recognized that he had raised credible concerns, that those concerns had been ignored, and that his death had occurred under circumstances that should have triggered a media investigation. IT also recognized that the failure to investigate had not been negligence alone. That mattered. Words and public records matter, that a person can be killed only once, that a lie can kill them. Over and over unless someone forces the record to stop repeating it. We forced it to stop. I attended the first ceremony held after the ruling. Petra stood with me, as did 3 members of Henry's family, connected by relay from Earth. There were delegates present from species that had voted against us in the chamber. Some of them looked uncomfortable. Good. Comfort had done enough damage already. I spoke briefly. I said that Henry Cole had not failed. I said that he had done exactly what he was sent there to do: observe, document, warn, and leave behind a record honest enough that someone else could pick it up and continue. That is one of the things institutions count on us forgetting. They want us to believe that if a person does not win in their own lifetime, they lost. That is not always true. Sometimes one person's job is to build the part of the bridge the next person needs. Henry had done that for me. Others had done it for him. And I would do it for whoever came after me. The gravity hits me the moment I step down onto the main floor. For the first time in months, my body feels right. Heavy. Grounded. Alive. IT is almost identical to various that should not be possible. Worlds with gravity like this do not usually produce spacefaring species. They crush them before they ever leave the sky. They were down bone, muscle, heart, and breath. Heavy worlds keep creatures trapped. They make life strong, yes, but they make progress slow and costly. And yet the humans are here, standing in this chamber, breathing this air, looking perfectly at home. That I take a slow breath and feel my muscles settle. No more low-gravity weakness. No more constant feeling that I might throw myself across the room with a careless step. Here, the floor pushes back. Here, every movement has meaning. And then the human delegate reaches the podium. John Smith, the chamber announces. Representative of Humanity United. The name is so plain it annoys me. John Smith, and oh wait. No grandeur. No title earned in blood. Just 2 simple words. Either they are hiding something, or they're so certain of what they are that they do not need to decorate it. I study him closely now, that he looks softer up close than any var would. No skulls, no armor, no visible weapons. His suit is plain, formal, built to make him look harmless, but the body beneath it tells another story. This is not the soft, swollen shape I am used to seeing in species born under weak gravity and gentle skies. This is not decorative strength, not ceremonial muscle. This is working strength, dense, compact, the kind of body built by constant resistance, the kind of body forced to earn every step that he moves toward the podium, and I catch something no one else seems to notice: at a tiny stumble. Barely there. His foot comes down harder than it needs to. His balance shifts. His knee bends a fraction too much, like his body expected the floor to fight him more than it did. Recognition flashes through me. I know that movement, that I have made it myself in low gravity 100 times. That IT is the step of a being used to weight, used to strain, used to living on a world that drags at you with every breath and every stride. He is holding himself back. He is not weak here. He is overcorrecting, like me. The chamber falls silent. Smith places both hands on the edges of the podium. His fingers tighten slightly, not from fear but from control. He is bracing himself against a room full of strangers who could erase his species if they chose to. And still, his voice is steady. Welcome, he says. No shaking. No hositashin. No sign that he cares how many eyes are on him. That he sounds as though he is speaking in a quiet meeting room. not standing before the Galactic Council. That means one of two things: he is either incredibly disciplined or completely insane that I am not yet sure which would impress me more. I am Delegate John Smith, he says. My people call ourselves humans. Our home world, which we very unimaginatively call Earth. He pauses, thinking, choosing his words carefully. I feel my attention sharpen. He is not speaking like a diplomat trying to calm a room. He is speaking like a warrior deciding exactly where to place the blade. He continues, let's just say it's not a place for the faint of heart. A ripple of confusion moves through the chamber. The softer species do not understand what he is doing. They are waiting for him to praise his world, to speak of beauty, peace, cooperation, shared values. They expect waterfalls and music, and fields of food. Instead, he activates the hologram. Earth appears above you, at first. It looks beautiful. Blue oceans, green land, white clouds swirling over the surface. Akati looks like the sort of world poets would worship. The kind of world that makes soft races sigh with wonder and speak of harmony. Then he begins to zoom in, and the beauty changes shape. 70% of our world is covered in water, he says. The image shifts to oceans so vast they make my chest tighten. Water stretching beyond sight. Waves towering like walls. Endless movement. Endless force. Of that, he continues, most is full of salt and minerals. We cannot drink it. Our ancestors had to fight over the small amount of fresh water we could use. He says it calmly. As if that is normal. As if growing from a world buried under poison water is not one of the most brutal beginnings I have ever heard. I lean forward. He keeps going. The images changed. A desert burns under a white-hot sun. Sand stretches to the horizon. Heat shimmers across the ground. There is no mercy there. No sade. No forgiveness. Live wrong for one day, 1 hour, and the world takes you. Then a jungle. Dense. Vet. Alive in the worst way. Too much life. Too many shapes moving in the shadows. Plants that poison. Insects that bite. Creatures hiding in branches, mud, water, leaf, and silence. Every part of it wants something from your body, and none of it asks politely. Then iced at a frozen wasteland where even the air looks sharp. Wind slices over snow and stone. Metal breaks. Skin dees. Breath becomes pain. My spines rise slowly, one by one. I know these places. Not exactly, but I know them. Every death world has its own face, its own way of testing life, its own cruelty. And Earth wears the same expression my home world wore. The chamber begins to murmur. They see it now. Not fully. Not the way I do, but enough. This is not a garden world. This is not a gentle cradle of civilization. This is a death world. We didn't just survive in those environments, Smith says. His voice lowers slightly. Not for drama, for truth. We thrived in them. The chamber goes still. Those words hit harder than all the images before them. Thrived. Not endured. Not escaped. Thrived. Before we developed agriculture, he says, we had already spread across nearly every part of our planet. For one moment, I forget to breathe again. That is not how soft species rise. Soft species build shelter first. Then food systems. Then roads. Then walls. They survive by making the world less dangerous. But this means humans crossed deserts, jungles, mountains, ice, storms, and poison coasts before they had reliable farming. They did not wait until the world became manageable. They walked into it as it was and made room for themselves. That I know that history, that I know that patterned IT is the same story my ancestors told. Not word for word, but bone for bone. That I rise from my seat before I realize I am doing it. Nearby delegates glance at me nervously. They see a Var prince standing, claws visible, back ridges raised. To them it looks like aggression. Let them think that. They do not understand my people. They do not understand me. This is not anger. This is respect. Smith has my full attention now. Every instinct I was born with is awake. Every lesson carved into me by bloodline, training, and old survival memory is telling me the same thing. Listen, watch, learn. But then he changes direction, and the ground under my assumptions breaks open. These environments were dangerous, Smith says, but they were not the greatest threat we faced. The hologram changes. I expect monsters, teeth, claws, huge beasts built by an unforgiving world. That is what I would have shown if I stood where he stands. That is what any VAR would show. Look at what tried to kill us. Look at what we killed back. Fear us, respect us, understand the kind of world that made us. But Smith shows none of that. Instead, a human body appears in the air above the chamber. Simple, small, fragile looking. And he says very calmly, "The most dangerous thing our planet ever produced." He pauses, his eyes sweep the room. "Was us." A shiver runs through me. The murmurs start again, louder this time. Confused, disturbed. Most of the chamber does not understand what that means. I do. I understand it instantly. Because only one kind of species says those words with a straight face. The kind that stopped fearing the world because it became worse than the world. The hologram changes again. Now I see early humans, wrapped in furs, carrying crude weapons, thin compared to modern soldiers, but hard in the way starving hunters are hard. There is nothing gentle in the way they move. Ahead of them is a herd of massive beasts, towering things, tusks long enough to impale armored warriors. Bodies huge enough to crush bone beneath their feet without slowing. I wait for the ambush, for traps, for sudden strike, for fire. Instead, the humans run. That is all. They run after the herd. The sun moves across the sky. The humans keep running. The herd tries to pull away, but the humans do not stop. Night falls. They keep going. The herd is faster, stronger, heavier, built for power. Still the humans keep coming. Morning rises again. Now I can see the herd slowing. Their movement is different. Their strength is breaking apart piece by piece. Muscles failing, breath shortening, bodies too large to carry their own panic forever. And still, the humans are you in oh glory, in oh clean killed, and oh single heroic strike. Just patience, distance, endurance, refusal. Eventually, when the great beast collapses, not dead from wounds, not overwhelmed by numbers, not tricked, simply broken by exhaustion, that IT could not keep escaping. And the humans could not stop coming. That a deep chill moves through my body. Not fear. Not yet. Recognition that I know what I'm looking at. This was not a hunt of strength. That IT was a hunt of certainty. They did not need to overpower their prey. They only needed to outlast it. This is how we began, Smith says. Our greatest natural weapon was never size or claws or raw strength. It was endurance, planning, persistence, the ability to keep moving toward victory long after stronger creatures had given up. Several delegates actually recoiled. That I understand why. Most species think danger has a shape they can recognize. Teeth, venom, armor, talons, things that look deadly. Humans do not look deadly. That is the trap. That a predator that can chase you until your body fails is something different, something worse, something patient. The hologram speeds forward through time. Villages become towns. Towns become cities. Stone becomes bronze. Bronze becomes iron. Iron becomes steel. Spears become swords. Swords become guns. Guns become engines. Engines become machines built for destruction on a scale that makes tribal violence look like children fighting in dirt. Maps appear, borders, marching lines, fire spreading across continents, smoke over cities, flags rising and falling. One human empire dies. Another takes its place, then another and another. None lasting. All bleeding. Smith's voice becomes flatter now, colder. Like he's not speaking about pride, but evidence. Over the course of our history, he says, more than 1.5 billion. Humans have died in organized conflict caused by other humans. The chamber goes dead silent. Even the air feels different, and he is not finished. And that number only includes what we officially count as war. A sound moves through the room then. Not a murmur. Not polite surprise. Real shock. Real horror. The Jix delegate near the front actually flinches. Someone in the upper row whispers something that sounds like a prayer, and I smile. That I cannot help it. The grin spread across my face slowly, all teeth and no apology. Let them stare. Let them wonder what kind of creature smiles at a number like that. They do not understand, but I do. Humans did not just survive a death world. They conquered it so thoroughly that they turn on each other, not only over food, Not only over shelter, they fought over pride, belief, honor, power, words, ideas, borders, gods, dreams. They had enough strength left after mastering their world to become their own greatest enemy. That is not weakness. That is excess power with nowhere else to go. That I look at Smith across the chamber. He finds my eyes at once. And in that brief moment, I know he understands what he sees in my face. Not mockery, not cruelty, recognition that he has shown his scars to a creature who knows what scars mean that he is. Not asking for mercy, he is saying something much more dangerous, that we are like you. The hologram shifts through more war footage. More weapons, more burning cities, more dead carried by those still breathing. Human history laid bare without excuses. And as I watch, one thought grows louder in my mind with every image. They are mirrored in claws, and scales, and built-in armor, and fangs fit for war. And still they became this, that a species that survives by refusing to stop, that a species that turns thought into conflict, and conflict into progress, and progress into even greater ways to destroy, that a species that should have died 1,000 times, but didn't. The reel ends. Smith stands motionless at the podium while the silence spreads through the chamber like floodwater, and one knows what to say, and one knows how to react. The soft species came here expecting a new trade partner, that a new voice in the council, a harmless newcomer with interesting customs and a nice planet. Instead, they have been introduced to something else entirely, a death world species with no natural weapons, and no fear of what that means. Slowly, I bow my head. Only a little. Only enough for someone from my world to understand that IT is the smallest gesture of respect our culture allows without formal oath. Smith sees it. His face does not change, but I see the slight shift in his shoulders. He understands, and now I know for certain. Humans are not simply another species entering the galactic community. There's something the galaxy has not prepared for, something familiar, something dangerous, something I may understand better than anyone else in this chamber. And I am beginning to suspect the council has no idea what has just arrived at its table. The rest of the presentation should have faded in a background noise that IT almost does, but not completely. That I tell myself I have already seen what matters. I tell myself the important truth has already been revealed. Earth is a death world. Humanity survived it. Humanity shaped itself into something hard, patient, and dangerous. That should have been enough. Instead, I keep listening because now I want to understand not only what humans survived, but what surviving did to them. Smith continues speaking, and the chamber does its best to recover. A few delegates shift in their seats. Some tap nervous claws or soft fingers against armrests. Others look anywhere except the human at the podium, as if refusing to meet his eyes will somehow make his species less real. That IT will not. He speaks of language first. Not one language. Not two. Hundreds. Hundreds of different ways to name the same stars, the same fears, the same hungers. Hundreds of ways to tell stories, give orders, make peace, start wars, pray, lie, comfort, command, and more. That I find that more unsettling than the casualty numbers. Soft species tend toward sameness. Stability. Easy communication. Easy unity. Humans never did. They remained divided for so long, in so many environments, under so many pressures, that their minds split into countless patterns and still refused to break apart completely. That kind of variety should have destroyed them. Instead, somehow, it made them stronger. Then he speaks of games, not children's distractions, not simple amusements, strategy games, war games, simulations, competitive systems built around conquest, planning, deception, sacrifice, and endurance. Humans, he explains, spend their free time pretending to build empires, destroy them, betray each other, outthink each other, survive impossible odds, and win against stronger enemies. For fun. I stare at him. That of course they do. That a species shaped by endless struggle would not remove struggle from its life once it found comfort. It would recreate it, shrink it, refine it, turn it into ritual, challenge, competition. The chamber does not know what to do with that information. They hear games. I hear training that became culture, that he speaks of art. That catches me off guard. Not because I doubt that humans have art. Every thinking species does, even the dull ones. But the way he describes it, the way he ties it to suffering, chaos, loss, and survival that I understand too well. They take pain and turn it into music. They take death and turn it into memory. They take fear and turn it into beauty. To the death world does not only create warriors. Sometimes it creates poets sharp enough to make pain sound holy. That, more than anything else, feels familiar to them. Why people did the same, that we wrote our best songs after our worst years. Then Smith speaks of guilt. The word lands. Strangely in the chamber. I can feel it. Some delegates relax slightly, thinking they have finally found the part of humanity that will make them manageable. Yes, regret, shame, remorse. These are emotions peaceful species trust. But Smith does not offer guilt as apology. He offers it as truth, that he speaks of the dead, of wars they caused, of cities burned by human hands, of whole generations shaped by destruction they made themselves. He says humans know what they are capable of, and that knowledge is heavy. He says they carry it, study it, fear it, hate parts of it, but they cannot deny it, and they cannot remove it from themselves. That is the part that holds me. Not the violence, not the body count, the honesty. He is not asking the chamber to forgive his people. He is telling them forgiveness is irrelevant. This is what humanity is: beautiful, terrible, thoughtful, brutal, creative, cruel, loving, violent. All of it at once, in hiding to, in polishing, in desperate attempt to pretend the darkness is only an old phase they have grown beyond, just truth. And in that moment, I understand something with terrifying clarity. The galaxy has spent so long dividing species into neat little categories that it has forgotten the worst thing a mind can be: complicated. Humans are complicated, just like us. The chamber lights brighten. The presentation ends one applauds at first. For several long heartbeats, the entire room sits inside a silence, so heavy it feels almost physical. Then, slowly, carefully, a few delegates begin making the small, polite sound ceremony requires. Hands tap together. Soft voices murmur approval. Formality crawls back into the room like a wounded thing. But the mood has changed. Everyone knows it. They gather their notes too quickly. Avoid one another's eyes. Begin whispering in tight circles the moment decorum allows it. Already I can see the calculations starting behind their faces. Trade implications, military risk, alliance shifts, containment plans. They're afraid. Good. Fear means they were paying attention. I turn to Jox. She is watching me with open satisfaction now. Her mandibles twitch in what passes for a grin among her kind. She knew that, of course she knew. She did not bring humanity here because the council needed another member. She brought them because she wanted to see what happened when a room full of herbivores realized a second predator had entered the clearing. Well, she chirps softly. I let the silence drag out. Let her wonder whether I am angry, impressed, offended, threatened. Then I smiled at a real smile, the kind I have not used in years. I like them, I say. For once in her life, Jox looked surprised. Only for a second. But I see it. She expected concern. Maybe hostility. Maybe the cold irritation of one apex species discovering another. Instead, I give approval. I leave her there before she can answer. My feet carry me out of the chamber and into the reception hall beyond, where polished walls and careful lighting try very hard to make this place feel civilized. Around me, delegates flow in nervous streams, collecting drinks, muttering to aides, pretending they're not glancing over their shoulders to see where the human went. That I do not need to search long, that he stands near a refreshment table, trying to look like he belongs. He does not. Not because he is clumsy, not because he is weak, because he is too aware. His posture gives him away. The way he stands, the way his eyes move, the way he keeps his weight ready to shift in any direction, the way he scans exits without appearing to, the way one hand stays loose and free, even while the other balances a plate of small ceremonial food no real warrior would bother with. And then I understand something else. They sent a soldier, not a polished diplomat, not a silver-tongued politician, Not a smiling cultural ambassador, but a soldier. Maybe retired, maybe repurposed, but a soldier all the same. That fascinates me more than anything else I have learned so far. Either humanity trusts soldiers far more than most species do, or they considered this event dangerous enough that they sent someone who could survive it if words failed. Both possibilities interest me that I walk toward him. The crowd parts before me without being asked. Delegates step aside with lowered eyes and tight shoulders. They see a Var prince in ceremonial black, spines raised, claws visible, moving in a straight line toward the human representative. To them, it must look like a coming attack. Let them think so. Fear makes space. The human sees me coming. For one brief moment, his face becomes perfectly honest. First recognition, then alarm, then calculation, then something harder. Resolved, he sets his shoulders that he does not run, that he does not try to hide behind the table or vanish into the crowd or call for security. He simply stands there, holding his ground with a plate of food in one hand like the absurd little diplomat he is pretending to be. I stop in front of him. Up close. The difference in size between us is dramatic. I'm taller by a head, broader by far, heavier enough that if I leaned into him, I could put him on the floor without effort. My claws could open his chest. My jaws could break his neck. My scales could turn aside blades that would cut his soft skin to ribbons. And still, he does not move. The training of the court leaves me. Not completely. Just enough that I do not give the formal greeting. I do not offer the careful words expected in council halls. I do not bow. Instead, I extend my hand that I know the human gesture from the files I studied before arriving. A handshake, palm to palm, a sign of peace, of trust, of greeting. Among my people, it means something else. Among the Var, an extended hand between warriors is a test. Take it, and you agree to be measured. Grip wrong, and you reveal fear. Flinch, and you reveal weakness. Pull away too quickly, and you confess more than any words could. The human looks at my hand, that he knows that I see it instantly. He studied us as carefully as I studied him, that he knows this is not just a greeting. Around us, the room grows quieter. Nearby conversations die one by one as more delegates realize something significant is happening. For a long second, he does nothing. Then he sets down his plate, slowly, deliberately. He lifts his eyes to mine and takes my hand. His grip is strong. Not strong for a human, strong. Dense muscle tightens under his sleeve. The bones of his hand press against mine, fragile compared to my own, but steady. He is not trying to crush, not trying to overpower. He knows better. He is not stupid, he is simply refusing to yield. Interesting, I tighten my grip, just a little, enough to make the point clear. Enough that a softer being would wince, pull back, apologize, laugh nervously, do anything to soften the challenge. He does none of those things. He holds on. His jaw tightens once. That is all. No flinch. No retreat. No false smile. Just eye contact, steady, measured, very dangerous that I could crush his hand. The thought comes naturally, mechanically, the way all tactical assessments come. I could end this exchange in violence before anyone nearby even understood it had turned. I could break bone and blood vessels and send a message to the entire reception hall. But I do not, because this is not defiance. This is parity of spirit. He is not pretending we are equal in body. He is showing me he does not need to be. We stand like that for several breaths. 0.5, maybe more. The room around us goes nearly silent, that I can feel their fear building. The soft species do not understand predator language, but they recognize tension when they see it. Finally, I release his hand. He does not shake it out. That matters. A lesser being would have flexed fingers, rubbed joints, shown relief. He does not give the watchers that satisfaction. He simply waits. I take one step back, just one. Not retreat. Acknowledgement. You are a soldier. I say that it is not a question, that he watches me for a moment before answering. I was. His voice is calm. Tired, perhaps. Controlled. Now I'm whatever my people need me to be. That is a better answer than most princes could manage. That a smile pulls at the edge of my mouth again. Good. I say he does not smile back fully, but something in his face shifts. Not relaxation. Recognition. He understands that he has passed the test. And he also understands there will be more. Around us, the reception hall, begins breathing again. Conversations restart in whispers. Glasses clink. Feet move. No one comes closer. Good. This is not for them. I study him in silence. He is even more convincing now that we are face to face. Not because he tries to seem dangerous. Quite the opposite. He is trying very hard to appear ordinary. Harmless. Professional. Temporary. The sort of person great powers send when they're not yet ready to show their true teeth. That alone tells me humanity is not careless, but the body betrays the role. The gaze, the posture, the easy acceptance of risk, the speed with which he masters fear and puts it under discipline. He is not a man chosen for speeches. He is a man chosen because if this room turned hostile, he would not freeze. That makes me like him even more. That I lean slightly closer. Retired? I asked. That a short breath leaves him. Not quite a laugh. Something like that. Meaning, his eyes narrow just a fraction, as if deciding how honest to be. Meaning I was useful somewhere else once, he says. Now I'm useful here. Expendable, I think. The word arrives with immediate clarity. Not worthless. Not low rank. Expendable. A piece someone can risk. A warrior temporarily made into a diplomat. Because if this mission failed, the species would lose a soldier. Not a pillar. I almost laugh again. Of course they did. Of course humanity looked at first contact with a galaxy full of unknown powers and decided the safest thing to send was someone already familiar with danger. I like them more by the second. I fold my hand behind my back and lower my voice. I am Varaxian. His eyes sharpen slightly at the name. He knows enough to recognize it. My rank. My bloodline. My place. Good. I would discuss terms. I continue for a cultural exchange between the Var Empire and humanity united. That gets his full attention. Not because the words are surprising, because he understands what they really mean. I am not asking to exchange songs and recipes. I am asking whether two Death World powers should begin studying one another directly. Whether we should test compatibility before the rest of the galaxy decides what to do about us. Whether we should become something more dangerous together than apart. I let the words hang. Do you accept? He glances once toward the room around us. At the delegates pretending not to watch. At jocks in the distance, speaking to a cluster of worried council members. At the chamber doors still open behind us like the mouth of some well-fed beast. Then he looks back at me. He reaches out again. His hand closes around mine for the second time. This grip is firmer, more certain. Yes, he says, there's the slightest tremor in the first syllable. Fear. Adrenaline. The natural reaction of a sane being making a decision with consequences he cannot yet measure. He masters it instantly. I'll pass it up the chain, he adds. Then, after the smallest pause, but yes. Interesting, not arrogant enough to promise what is not his. Not weak enough to avoid the answer. Very interesting. I test him once more. Just a little. I pull him a fraction closer. Enough that a weaker creature would stumble. His response is immediate and efficient. He plants his feet, shifts his weight, gives me just enough resistance to stay balanced without turning it into a contest. Perfect. He understands force. He understands there is no reason to fight pressure with pressure when stability will do. I release his hand. A low sound rises from my chest. Several nearby delegates recoil. They think it is a threat. It is not. It is laughter. A soldier, I say more to myself than to him. Yes, that makes sense. He gives me a sharper look now. And you? He asks. I bare my teeth in the closest thing to a friendly expression my species has. I'm also a warrior. His gaze flicks once to the ceremonial marks along my arms, to the old scars near my wrist joints, to the way I carry myself when standing still. He believes me. Good. My brothers compete for a throne I do not want. I say, I prefer more interesting work. For the first time, an actual smile threatens at the corner of his mouth. I can respect that. Of course, he can. A career soldier turned reluctant diplomat would understand the weight of power better than most rulers do. The noise in the reception hall has changed now. The fear remains, but curiosity is mixing with it. We have crossed some invisible line, and everyone can feel it even if they cannot name it. Predators recognize each other. Prey recognize it too. They just do not enjoy the experience. I glance toward the far corridor, leading away from the formal levels of the complex. The lower halls are warmer, rougher, Less polished. Fewer watchers. Better drink. This place is suffocating, I say. Come with me. He raises an eyebrow. I know somewhere quieter. I continue. Better heat. Better alcohol. Fewer fools pretending not to stare. This time, the smile reaches his eyes. That, he says, sounds better than this. I turn and begin walking without checking whether he follows. He does that, of course, he does that. We move through the corridor side by side, and the reception hall slowly falls behind us. The polished surfaces fade. The carefully measured lighting grows warmer. The air becomes less sterile, touched by food, metal, machinery, life that better. As we walk, I become aware of something unexpected. Relief, not comfort, not trust, but relief. For the first time in this entire miserable ceremony, I am no longer alone in a room full of creatures who mistake softness for virtue. The human walks beside me with the silence of someone who knows when not to fill space with empty words. That, too, I respect. After a while, he speaks. So, he says, was that first handshake supposed to be a greeting? I let out another low laugh. Depends, I say. On what? On whether you survived it. He snorts quietly at that. A small, honest sound. Good that he has humor. Most soldiers worth knowing do. We reach the lift leading down to the lower halls. The doors open. Warm air spills out. I step inside and glance at him. He hesitates only a fraction before following. The doors close. For a moment, the world narrows to metal walls, low mechanical hum, and the shared silence of two creatures measuring what the other may become. I speak without looking at him. You knew what the handshake meant. Yes. You took it anyway. Yes. Why? The lift descends. He takes a breath before answering. Because if I step back, he says, everyone in that room would have remembered it. I turn my head slightly. He keeps his eyes on the lift doors. And I ask. And because he says, I wanted to know what kind of person you were. That answer settles into me like heat. Not what kind of prince. Not what kind of enemy. Person, and I like that. The lift doors open. The lower level waits beyond. Dimmer lights, rough stone, heavier air, distant voices, the faint smell of strong drink, and hot metal. That a better place for truth. That I gesture for him to step out first. He does, but not carelessly. Still alert. Still reading corners and exits. Soldier indeed. As we move deeper into the lower hall, away from the council's polished heart, I feel the first edges of something forming between us. Not friendship. Not yet. Not alliance either. Those words are too soft, too finished. This is something sharper. The beginning of recognition. The beginning of trust between dangerous things. And in a galaxy like this, that may be the most dangerous beginning of all. The lower halls of the council complex feel more honest. That is the first thing I notice. The polished emptiness of the upper levels is gone. Down here, the ceilings are lower, the walls rougher, the light warmer. The air carries real scents now. Metal, heat, cooked food, old stone, strong drink, oil from machinery, the sweat of species who still remember they have bodies. Up above, everything was built to impress. Down here, everything was built to be used. Better, much better. That I lead Smith through the corridor without speaking. He does not ask questions. He does not try to fill the silence like nervous diplomats do. He simply walks beside me, watchful but calm, taking in every corner, every doorway, every face that turns our way. He does not stare, he observes. There is a difference that we pass a pair of council servants carrying heated platters from one service lift to another. They flatten themselves against the wall when they see me. One of them notices the human at my side and looks even more alarmed that I ignore them. Smith notices, of course. I can tell by the slight turn of his eyes. You're popular, he says dryly. I let out a low sound from my chest. They are afraid. I reply. Of you? Yes. He glances at me. And now maybe of me too. That almost makes me smile again. Good. I say that. He huffs out the smallest breath that might have been a laugh. We enter the unofficial VAR quarter of the lower level. It is not formally ours, not on any map or council record, but everyone knows whose territory it is. The walls here are darker. The room temperature is higher. Seating is built stronger and lower to the ground. Metal frames replace delicate decorative furniture. Flames burn in controlled channels behind thick glass. giving the space light and heat both to an soft species chooses to linger here unless they have a reason. Tonight, no one stops us. I guide him to a corner table far from the main flow of traffic. Private enough for conversation. Open enough that no one can claim secrecy if they later grow suspicious. A warrior learns early that privacy and visibility are both weapons. Smith takes the seat across from me. His body changes slightly the moment he sits. Not relaxation. Never full relaxation, but a lowering of unnecessary tension. A soldier off formal duty. Still alert. Still armed in the ways that matter. Just no longer wasting energy on appearances. Yes, that I was right about him, that a server arrives almost immediately. One of ours. Young, quiet, smart enough not to ask questions. I order 2 drinks. Strong ones. The kind that burn the mouth, the throat, the chest, and leave heat behind like a memory of violence. Smith watches without interrupting. When the server leaves, he glances around the room again. "This is where your people come to breathe?" he asks. "Yes." He nods slowly. I can see why. For a few moments, neither of us speaks. It is not an uncomfortable silence. A faint smile touches his mouth. "Now I know how much respect your father has for this council." I let out a rough laugh. "None." That earns another quiet breath of amusement from him. Better and better. "And you?" I ask. "Your family wanted war?" The smile fades. Not fully. Just enough to make room for memory. "No," he says. "They wanted something safer." Safer. A business. Stability. Predictable work. A decent life. I look at him for a moment, trying to fit the image in a place that it does not fit. He sees that. "I know," he says. "Hard to picture." "Yes." He takes another drink. "I joined the military instead." "Why?" This time his answer comes quickly, because I wanted to see what people were really like when things stopped being comfortable. The words sit heavily in the warm air. I say nothing, he continues. And because some part of me always knew comfort wasn't enough. Now that I understand too well, the strongest cages are often the safest ones that we sit with that truth together for a while. Then I decide to open another door. "Tell me about one of your wars," I say. Not the version for politicians. The real one. His gaze sharpens. For the first time since leaving the reception hall, something truly military comes forward in his face. Not aggression. Not fear. Memory organized for usefulness. "Which kind?" he asks. "The fast ones or the long ones?" I feel my smile return. The long ones. Of course it would be the long ones. Those are always the most revealing. He looks down at his glass for a moment, then back at me. "We had one fought in trenches," he says. "Lines cut into the earth. Mud everywhere. Water rot disease. Men lived underground for days, weeks, months, sometimes longer. Artillery never really stopped. Not fully. The room around us fades. I can see it now through his voice, the broken landscape. Explosions tearing open the sky. Bodies waiting in mud too thick to run through properly. What were they fighting for?" I asked. He lets out a humorless breath. "Depends who you ask." I know that answer too, he continues. "Land. Pride. Alliances. Fear. Old promises. New mistakes. At some point it stopped mattering. The war became its own reason." I rest both hands around my cup. "Yes," I say quietly. "That happens." He watches me, then nods once and keeps going. "Thousands died for ground that changed hands again and again. A field, a road, a hill, a ruined village. Sometimes men were sent forward knowing they would fail before they even climbed out of the trench." His eyes lose focus for a second. Not because he was there, because soldiers inherit old wars too. We carry them in training, in doctrine, in stories, in caution, in the shape of every decision made after. What ended it? I ask. He gives a bleak little half smile. "Exhaustion." "Mostly, of course. The long wars always end that way. Never because wisdom wins. Only because eventually even hatred gets tired and I motion for another round before the first is fully gone." The server appears quickly, replaces our drinks, disappears again. Smith watches the motion with professional awareness. "You trust your people down here," he says, "with my life?" He nods. "Must be nice." That answer interests me. "Your people do not trust each other?" Oh, we do, he says. Sometimes. Just never blindly. I laugh again, quieter this time. Yes. Definitely the same. He lifts his new glass, studies the liquid inside it, then takes a careful drink. Smarter now, he is adapting that I approve. Another war, I say if he looks at me over the rim of the glass. This one was fought in the sky, he says. Machines crossing oceans. Cities bombed from above. Fire falling in waves. Industrial war. Efficient. Massive. Whole populations turned into targets. No pride in his tone and dramatic performance. Just fact. That makes it worse. There was another, he continues, that ended with a weapon so destructive the world has spent the years since trying to convince itself never to use it again. I go still. There are many ways to reveal a species' heart. Weapons are one of them. And has your species used it again? I ask. No, the answer comes immediately. Interesting, because you fear it? I ask yes. And because you fear what it would make you if you used it again, I add that he holds my gaze. Yes. There it is again. That honesty. Not denial. Not pride. Not excuses. Just admission that a species that fears itself is dangerous, that a species that fears itself and still moves forward anyway is even more dangerous. That I decided is my turn to I set down my cup. On Var, before we united, the tribe spent generations fighting each other while the world fed on us all. I say. Predators above us. Predators below us. Poison in the water, venom in the forests, tremors under our cities. We were too busy killing one another to notice that the planet itself was winning. He says nothing. Good. This story deserves silence. One day, I continue. Someone finally understood. The enemy was not the next tribe. Not really. The enemy was everything. The world. The hunger. The storms. The creatures that hunted us. The scarcity. The constant pressure of extinction. I pause. And once that idea spread, everything changed. He leans forward slightly. How? We turned outward. His eyes narrow a fraction. You fought the planet. Yes. There is no other way to say it that he waits. So I continue. We hunted every major predator that had ever fed on us. Systematically. We drove some into extinction. Forced others into control zones. Poisoned breeding grounds. Burned nesting fields. Cleared entire regions to make them livable. We remade the planet until there was room for only one apex species left. He takes that in without judgment, without revulsion. Most council races would hear that and recoil. He does not. What did it cost, he asks. Now that is the right question. Everything. I saved he nods once, again, understanding without performance. The second round burns lower in our cups. The room around us hums with distant voices and clinking metal, but our corner remains untouched in one interrupts. They know better. Or perhaps they're simply listening from far enough away to feel safe while. Pretending not to. I do not care. I study the human across from me, a retired soldier sin in diplomat's clothing. A death world predator wrapped in soft skin. A creature who talks about guilt without begging forgiveness. A being who shook my hand knowing it was a challenge and did not step back. Interesting feels too small a word now that I decide to test something else. You do not seem surprised by me. I say he considers that. I was surprised by your size, he says. And the teeth. I bear them slightly. That is fair. But no, he adds. I wasn't surprised by you. Why? He rolls the glass once between his fingers. Because every time humans think we've found the strangest thing in the universe, he says, it usually turns out to be another version of ourselves wearing a different face. That answer lands deep, deeper than I expect. For a brief second, I say nothing. Then I lift my drink. To different faces, I say he lifts his. To familiar problems. We drink. The heat settles deeper this time. Not just from the alcohol, from the conversation, from the strange and growing certainty that this meeting matters more than either of us has admitted yet. That I look at him over the edge of my cup. Tell me, I say, when you stood at that podium today and showed the council what humanity really is, were you trying to scare them? He thinks about it. Then he gives me the most honest answer of the night. No, he says. I was trying not to lie to them. And that may be the most dangerous answer yet, because lies can be negotiated, truth has to be survived. For a while after he says it, neither of us speaks. He was not trying to scare them. He was trying not to lie. That is a very different thing. And somehow, it is worse. Fear can be dismissed as performance. Intimidation can be answered. Bluffs can be tested. Truth is harder. Truth stays that I sit back in my chair and study him again. This strange human soldier wearing diplomat's clothes. This careful speaker with a fighter's eyes and a survivor's stillness. The lower hall feels even warmer now. The drink burns pleasantly in my chest. Somewhere behind us, metal strikes metal in a kitchen. Voices rise and fall. A laugh bursts from another table and then fades. Life continues, but here, at our corner table, something more important is taking shape. You really showed them everything you thought mattered. I say. He turns the glass once between his fingers. No, he says. Not everything. That makes me smile. Good. He looks at me. Why is that good? Because any species foolish enough to show all its teeth the first day deserves what happens next. That earns me a real laugh. Short, sharp, honest, fair. He says that we sit with that for a moment. Then I gesture lightly with my cup. Tell me about the wars you did not show them. His face changes again. Not hardening. Focusing. This is the face of someone opening an old locked room because the person across from him might actually understand what is inside. There was one fought in shadows, he says. Not neat lines. Not obvious fronts. Small units. Long years. Jungle, desert, mountain, city. Everyone claiming they were protecting something. Freedom. Stability. Tradition. The future. It depended on who was speaking. And what were they really protecting? I asked that. He gives me a tired look. The right to decide who got to shape the next generation. Yes, that answer feels true enough to cut. He continues. Some of those wars lasted so long that the people who started them were old or dead before they ended. By the end, most of the people still fighting barely remember the original cause. They only remember the losses. That too, I know. Memory is often the last weapon a war leaves behind. Did you fight in one of those? I asked. He is silent for a moment. Then he nods. Yes. The word comes quietly, but it carries weight that I do not press immediately. That a lesser creature would, that a politician would smell weakness and push for details. A spy would search for useful pain. A diplomat would ask something soft and false to seem kind. I do none of those things. That I simply wait. After a while, he speaks again. It was heat more than anything, he says. Heat and dust. Not every day. Some days were cold enough to crack skin. But mostly heat. The kind that drains thought out of you. Makes every step feel heavier than it should. Makes bad decisions easier. I say nothing. He keeps going. You stop thinking in big ideas after a while. Country, duty, policy. None of that means much in the moment. It becomes smaller. The person next to you. The route ahead. The sound that shouldn't be there. The chance to sleep. Water. Shade. Getting through the next hour. His eyes are not on me now. They're somewhere else. Somewhere far away and too clear. And when it was over, I asked. He looks back at me. It wasn't over. Yes, that of course. Wars like that rarely end cleanly. They seep into borders. Families. Laws. Memory. They keep fighting inside people long after weapons go quiet. I nod once. I understand. He studies my face, searching for false comfort. He finds none. Good, because false comfort is insult. I set my empty cup aside and rest both hands on the table. When I was young, I say, my father sent me to a northern fault zone settlement after a quake season that lasted nearly half a year. Entire districts were gone, crops buried, water lines shattered. The old predators had come down from the mountains to feed on the weak and injured. He listens the way soldiers do when another soldier is speaking, not politely, but completely. There was no battle line. I continue. No glorious charge. No grand strategy. Just days of pulling survivors from stone, killing what came for them in the dark, rationing heat, and deciding who would receive medicine we did not have enough of. His jaw tightens slightly. He understands that kind of war, too. The settlement survived, I say. So we called it victory. He breathes out slowly. Yeah, he says. That sounds familiar. Of course it does. That is the strangest thing. Not how different we are. How easily the important parts translate. I signal for more drink. The server hesitates this time, just for a second, looking from me to the human and back again, perhaps trying to decide whether a third round is wise. That I look at him until he decides it is smart. When the drinks arrive, Smith is the one who speaks first. You said your brothers are fighting for the throne, he says. How bad is it? I let out a low breath. Bad enough that my father pretends it is strength. He waits. Among my people, I say, power struggles are often praised while they are happening and regretted only after the dead can no longer complain. Princes gather loyalists. Houses make promises. Warriors choose sides. Everyone speaks of destiny and tradition. In the end, it is always the same. Blood, he asks. Yes. He lifts his glass but does not drink yet. And you really want no part of it? I look at the burning channel set into the wall behind him. Orange light slides over the edges of his glass. No, I say. A throne is only a well-decorated cage. Sit in it long enough, and every honest voice disappears. Every room becomes a trap. Every smile becomes strategy. Every meal becomes a test of whether someone means to poison you slowly or quickly. He gives me a dry look. That bad? Worse. That almost makes him laugh again. My family business wasn't that bad. He says that I blink once. Then I laugh harder than I have all night, that a few heads turn across the room. Let them. When the laugh fades, I point at him with one claw. You compare the ruling seat of the Var Empire to a family business? He finally grins openly. From the way you describe it? Close enough. I shake my head, still amused. Dangerous thing. Humor, IT makes trust easier. Perhaps too easy, but I let it stay. Your family wanted you to return to that life? I ask that he nods, something steady, useful, safe, respectable. And you chose war instead. I chose service, he says first, almost automatically. Then he catches himself and corrects it. I chose meaning, he says. That answer sits between us in heavy silence because yes, that is always the truth beneath it, not glory, not patriotism, not even duty most of the time. Meaning, some people would rather bleed for meaning than live comfortably without it. Those people are dangerous. Those people build history. The third round goes down slower than the first two, not because either of us is weakening. Because this is no longer about drinking. IT is about staying at the table, about seeing how far the truth can go before one of us turns away. I decide to push one last time. The other council species, I say they think they understand what happened upstairs. Smith gives a small, humorless smile. No, they think they understood enough. Yes. I tap one claw lightly against the table. They saw a violent history, a hard world, a dangerous species. That will frighten them, but it will also comfort them. He raises an eyebrow. Comfort them? Because they will think they know where to place you. He leans back slightly. In the box marked dangerous. Yes, I say. And contained. Predictable. Manageable through policy, distance, and caution. He is quiet for a moment. Why is that comforting? Because they are wrong. That gets his full attention. I continue. They think predators are simple. They think violence is simplicity. Teeth, hunger, attack, repeat. They do not understand the most dangerous thing a species can be is not brutal. I hold his gaze. It is thoughtful. He does not answer right away. When he finally speaks, his voice is very quiet. Yeah, he says. That sounds like us. It sounds like us too. There, the truth finally spoken aloud between us. Not implied. Not suggested. Named, he does not smile this time. Neither do I. This is too important for smiles. Do you know what frightens me most about humanity? I asked. He watches me without blinking. What? That you learned all the same lessons we did. I pause, without claws. For a second, I think he might laugh. Instead, he nods very slowly. And do you know what worries me most about your people? He asked. I tilt my head. What? That you understand exactly why that matters. Yes, exactly. The lower hall feels quieter now, though I know it is not. Perhaps the world has simply narrowed to this table, this conversation, this realization taking shape between us like a weapon being forged. The rest of the galaxy is going to make a mistake. I can feel it already. They will focus on military numbers, fleet sizes, trade leverage, population, territory, technology. Official doctrine, public statements, they will measure everything except the thing that matters: compatibility, recognition. The fact that two species from death worlds have looked at each other and seen something familiar enough to trust. That is what will change things, not treaties, not public ceremonies, not speeches. This at a table in a lower hall, point two soldiers speaking honestly. That is where history actually begins. Smith drains the last of his drink and sets the glass down. I should probably go before someone from my delegation starts panicking. He says, probably. Neither of us moves. He notices. So should you. Probably. That gets the faintest smile from him again. Good that we stand almost at the same time, but I rise first. Naturally. He rises a heartbeat later, steady, balanced, still careful, even after strong drink. His species really does adapt quickly. I approve of that too. For a moment, we simply stand there across the table, an O audience now, an O chamber, an O ceremony. Just the end of one conversation and the beginning of everything that may follow it. I extend my hand again. This time, it is not a challenge. He knows that immediately, as oh, do I. He takes it. The grip is firm, simple, real. If your people agree to the exchange, I say, send for me directly. He nods. If yours do the same, I will. I tilt my head slightly. They will. That draws a brief lift of his brow. Confident. I know my father, I say. He may distrust many things, but he never ignores strength when he sees it. Smith considers that. Mine too, he says. Interesting. That tells me more than he probably intended. That we release hands. For a second, neither of us steps away. Then he says, you know this is going to make people nervous. I let out one final low laugh. It already has. He glances toward the ceiling, toward the polished levels above us where the council delegates are likely already gathering in private rooms, speaking in urgent voices, asking frightened questions. What does humanity want? What does the Var Prince want? Why were they talking so long? Why did they leave together? What do two Death World species say to each other when the herbivores are not listening? I can imagine the answers they will invent. Most of them will be wrong, but not all. They'll start. Planning. Smith says, yes. They'll call it caution. Yes. He gives me a knowing look, and some of it will be fear. I bare my teeth. As it should be. This time he does laugh, not because the thought is funny, because it is true that we begin walking back toward the lift slower than before. No need to rush now. The important part has already happened. I tee the doors. He stops. So what do I tell them? He asks. The truth. I say that he waits. That I look at him for one last moment. This human soldier, this unlikely mirror, this soft-skinned predator with endurance in his bones and honesty where most diplomats keep lies. Then I answer. Tell them the Var are interested. A small smile touches his face. That's it? No, I say. Tell them something else too. What? I'll let the silence stretch just enough. Then tell them they're not alone anymore. For the first time since I met him, he looks genuinely caught off guard. Not frightened, not uncertain, just affected. Good. Some truths deserve impact. He nods once. I can do that. Then he steps into the lift. The doors begin to close. Just before they seal, he gives me a final look and says, to the ones who survived. I answer without hesitation. To the ones who had to. The doors shut. I stand there for a long moment after he is gone. The lower hall hums around me. Heat rises from the wall channels. Cups clink. Voices murmur. Somewhere overhead, the Grand Council continues pretending civilization is built on reason, order, and polite agreements between gentle beings. Let them pretend. Up above, they are already drafting reports, already planning contingencies, already trying to understand what happens when two apex predators recognize each other across a crowded room. They will talk about alliance risk, strategic imbalance, cultural volatility, military cooperation. They will use careful words, neutral words, cowardly words they still will not understand. This was never about war alone. It was never about violence. It was about recognition, about finding another species that knows what survival costs, about looking into alien eyes and seeing not weakness, not innocence, not prey, but kin, and that, in a galaxy built by soft hands and softer hearts, may be the most dangerous thing of all. It is a measuring silence, the kind shared by those who already know the surface of each other and are deciding whether to go deeper. I decide first. You fought in wars, I say. Not a question. He looks at me steadily. Yes. Many. Enough. The answer is clipped. Controlled. A closed door, but not locked. Not yet. I lean back slightly. Did you win? That makes him pause, longer than I expect. His eyes shift once, not away from me, but inward, looking through memory instead of around the room. When he finally answers, his voice is quieter. We survived. He lets that sit between us for a moment. That's usually how we measure victory. I study him. That is not the answer of a politician. That is not the answer of someone trying to sound noble. That is the answer of a man who has seen campaigns end with no clean winner, no glorious triumph, no songs worth singing. Only survival. That I understand that answer immediately. On VAR, we have entire wars remembered only by how many were still standing when the dust settled. The drinks arrive. Mine comes in a heavy dark metal cup. His comes in thick glass, probably because the servers do not trust humans with proper vessels yet. Wise or insulting? Hard to tell. I lift mine, take a long swallow, and feel the burn roll down into my chest. Good, real alive. Smith picks up his glass and copies me. The moment the drink hits him, I see it, the tiny widening of the eyes, the forced stillness, the deliberate swallow. He's trying very hard not to cough. That I bare my teeth. Strong? I ask. That he puts the glass down with careful dignity. Yes. I nod once. That is the point. This time he does laugh, softly, once under his breath. Good. That sound suits him better than diplomatic silence. We drink in stillness for another moment. Then I speak again. On my world, we do not fight for glory, I say. His eyes rise to meet mine. We do not fight for honor either. Those are words gentle species use when they want to make war sound noble. Clean. Necessary. Understandable. I lean forward slightly. We fight because the other option is extinction. He does not argue, does not soften the truth, does not give me some practice line about peace and mutual understanding. He just nods. Same. He says point one word in oak decoration. That I feel something settle deeper into place between us. Not agreement. Recognition. The difference matters. I tap one claw lightly against the side of my cup. You said your people measure victory by survival. That means you have fought the kind of wars that strip all meaning away. He takes another smaller sip this time. Learning. Good. Yes, he says. Some of them. Tell me. He watches me for a long moment. You first, he says. Interesting. Not refusal. Balanced. I respect that. I give him truth. Not all of it. Not yet. But enough. My brothers are tearing each other apart over a throne, I say. They believe power is worth any cost because they were raised near it and think that makes them entitled to it. He listens without interrupting. I am fourth born, I continue, which means I was old enough to be dangerous, important enough to be useful, and distant enough from succession to become expendable. He tilts his head slightly. That word catches his attention. Good. It is a useful position, I say. No one watches the fourth son as closely as the first. No one fears him quite enough. No one burdens him with too much trust. So he is sent to battle, to borders, to difficult negotiations, to places where things might go wrong. Like here, Smith says. Yes, I reply.